All right, thank you for staying with us. It is time now to know what's on the front pages of Nigerian newspapers. And joining me is broadcast journalist Funke Treasure. Good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning.
Right, we begin with the Daily Times. NARD, that's the National Association of Resident Doctors, kick as court order suspension of strike. You find details of that story on the pages of the Daily Times. To the First News newspaper, doctors strike, confusion as federal government NARD interpret court order differently. NARD directive to maintain status quo means strike continues. Federal government, no, it means you should return to work. You find details on the pages of the First News newspaper. And to the Vanguard newspaper now, strike, doctors adamant as federal government hails court order. Court orders doctors, federal government to suspend hostilities till September the 15th. We haven't been served any court order, NARD president says strike goes on. Court order welcome development. Federal government says court ruling won't affect implementation of MOU. Right, to the Nigerian Tribune now. COVID-19 third wave. Lagos records 135 deaths. 13 die in Osun in 1 week. Over 400 oxygen cylinders used daily. Sanwo-Olu says Edo makes vaccination compulsory. Details of the story on the pages of the Nigerian Tribune. Right, we move now to the Daily Independent. Tambuwal advises Buhari against grazing reserves, asks him to resuscitate them only where people are interested. All right, you find details of the story on the pages of the Daily Independent. To the Blueprint now, brute force only way out for banditry, kidnapping, El-Rufai. Brute force only way out of banditry, kidnapping, El-Rufai speaking there. To the Leadership newspaper, PDP Crisis deepens as court sacks Secondus as national chairman. PDP Crisis deepens as court sacks Secondus as national chairman. You find details on the pages of the Leadership newspaper. To the Daily Sun, more trouble for Secondus. Court restrains him from parading as PDP national chairman. Details on the pages of the Daily Sun. Well, to the Nation newspaper now, PDP Crisis takes new twist with Secondus' suspension. Rivers Court access national chairman. Jagade Obi body judge for chairmanship race. Details on the pages of the Nation newspaper. And on the Nigerian News Direct, still talking PDP Crisis, controversies trail court verdict over Secondus' removal as national chairman. You find details on the pages of the Nigerian News Direct. To the national economy, $1 billion foreign airlines revenue trapped in Nigeria, 19 others. Details on the pages of the national economy. To the Punch newspaper now, 36 states set up 6-member panel plan amendments. That's talking about the Petroleum Industry Act loopholes. Committee members, Delta, Osun, Imo, Plateau, Borno, Jigawa, finance commissioners, states governments to forward proposed amendments to PIA Implementation Committee. And finally now, on the front page of the Daily Trust, insecurity, villagers stockpile arms for self-defense. Well, Niger, Zamfara, Kaduna, Katsina lead well-to-do by AK-47, others with is. Lawyers decry unregulated use of firearms. And that's quite a worrying story there. But our focus this morning, Funke Treasure, is the story on the Daily Independent, talking about Tambuwal advising the president against grazing rivers and asking him to resuscitate them only where people are interested, because when the federal government or the president came up with resuscitating the grazing reserves, the roots, a lot of governors came out to say no, not in their states, because the Land Use Act, gives them the powers to decide what they want to do with their lands. And that has generated divergent reactions. And now we are getting this, saying that the government, the president should only look at those who are interested, perhaps engaged states who are interested in this. And I'm wondering what your perspective to this or your perception of all of this is.
Well, I'll hurry to say that Tambuwal is a wise man.
Right.
Yeah, he's a wise man, because if you look at the law which you have referred to presently, there is no place in the law where the federal government is in charge of land in Nigeria except the FCT. So when southern governors met in July earlier this year and said, look, it is no to open grazing. The power is vested in us as governors to do this. They were right, because that's what the Constitution says. But when you then see that after the president made that, said that in his speech, his first speech where he talked about the old grazing reserves, and people, there was an outcry. Then it died down a little, and then the president came again and said, 25 states, I want this, I'm setting up a committee to look at this. And now he's looking at the recommendations of the committee and saying, well, we'll look at where there have been infringements. So, but Tambuwal is here saying, look, you can't force the people. You don't have the local standard to do this within the law. You cannot force people to do this. Look at those who are willing, like in some eastern states of the Federation, in spite of the decisions of the governors. You find that some states, like, Benue, and some of them there, haven't even enacted the law. Anambra State has not enacted the law, the bill, rather. The bill that they're not even, some of them in the eastern states are not even working on the bill yet. So maybe if the federal government goes to such states, they may be willing, like Anambra has a compensation plan, that if there's an infringement on this, this is what we do, this is what we do. Go there. But you can't force the people. As the Benue State governor said, this is like courting crisis afresh.
Now, there are those who are saying that the reaction that is coming out from certain states towards the issues of herders has political underpinning. And I'm wondering how so, because you see that these persons have said that there are issues between herders and farmers, or even our people, where there has been crisis. Some persons have died as a result of that. What is the political underpinning that we are saying is here?
First of all, you can see from the herder-farmer crisis we've had for months now, we have a food crisis in our hands. Whether you like it or not, whether you admit it or not, and the presidency had better admit this, there is food scarcity. Because farmers, from what has happened at Igogo and other places, farmers are afraid to go to farm. Look at what happened I think in Kaduna, I'm not too sure now, one of the northern states where scores of farmers were killed. So there is that fear not to go. Now, this is what the president must be careful of. He has said he doesn't want to leave as a failure. And the way not to leave as a failure is to begin to look at these issues critically. People say, no, don't say Fulani herdsmen, say armed herdsmen. Some say they're mercenaries, they're foreigners, they've come from. Okay, why is the president not tackling that first? Is it that you want these foreign herdsmen or armed herdsmen to further entrench or consolidate their hold on, the states of the nation by insisting there must be grazing routes? I want grazing routes in 25 states. Why? We want to see the president. I am one of those who want to see the president do something about his armed herdsmen. We want to see decisive actions taken. Otherwise, as you said, it's looking like there's something political, there's something cultural at the back of this insistence on making, even non-grazing routes in the past become grazing routes now. I mean, why is the president shy or afraid or not wanting ranching, which is a better option?
No, in fact, there is a governor that came out to say that he has created spaces in the north. They can come, the herders can come over to his states. He's ready to give them those spaces and for ranching. And I'm wondering, okay, why can't we just accept and embrace ranching like you have pointed out? Now, the issue is, what will be government or the president's being decisive? If we say we want to see the president being decisive on this matter, what would it be? What would it look like?
That he will deploy, deploy state machinery to find out and to stop the menace of armed herdsmen. You want them to, okay, so fine, you're the president, you may have the presidential fiat to do some things, but look, the people are saying these people, these armed herdsmen are encroaching on our lands. They're saying we are afraid to go to the farms because of these. They're maiming, they're killing, they're kidnapping, and they're raping our women. What is the president doing? We want to see deployment. It's not that, and some people have reported that sometimes when they rise, as we saw in one of the headlines, that some people are beginning to stockpile weapons. And then the response of the security forces will be, it's illegal to have weapons. It can't be illegal to have weapons when some people have these weapons and are on rampage across the land. So it has to be, the government and its apparatus must be seen to not be favoring one side against the other, especially favoring, the side that is armed, that has the upper hand in this battle, because this is a battle.
And what will be the implication if the federal government still goes ahead insisting that, the president goes ahead insisting that he has made a demand and something has to be done?
First of all, he will have distracted himself from the business of governance, the more critical things he should be looking at in the federation. Secondly, he will have kick-started an avalanche of court cases, litigations here and there. People are going to go to court. Because if the president says, look, I'm obtuse about this is what I'm going to do, then people will have no choice but to go to court. And they're going to win because the law says the land is vested in
As someone said,
government.
that will be stretching the Constitution.
It will be, but since that's what the president wants, he's going to get it. Because nobody is going to yield their lands to people, strangers from somewhere, and then they can't do what they used to do. Look at, okay, let's even go back to the 60s grazing reserve.
Yes.
I read somewhere where someone said, of the 415 grazing reserves, only 113 of them have been gazetted. Only 2 are in the south. One in Ogun, one in Oyo. So what is this all about? Now you want to bring 25 states to give you, I don't want to say your people, but this is what it's looking like. Like the president is wanting to preserve his people.
Re-tribalizing.
That's re-tribalizing, but this is what it's going to be. Because if the president insists that in spite of the law, this is what I'm going to do, then the people have no choice to begin to look at it from the tribal lens. So, and I'm sure he doesn't want that. We don't want that. Nigerians are one. Look at how the Nigerians rose in support of the coronation of the Olu of Warri. Look at how we all celebrated. It wasn't a Niger Delta thing. We also look at the former president went there, bowed to the new king. Nigerians are loving people. Nigerians want the best for the nation. But we must, our leaders, especially the president, now that the presidency is not talking too much, the president must listen to the people. He mustn't force his own ways on people. Otherwise, people will begin to see this as tribal. And we don't want Nigeria divided.
Absolutely. Now, let's quickly look at the story you touched on, because when I read it earlier, it was quite worrying to see a story on the front page of the Daily Trust talking about insecurity, villagers stockpiling arms for self-defense. And it is also being reported that well-to-do buy AK-47, others with ease, and lawyers are decrying unregulated use of firearms. This is quite worrying.
It is.
As it is. I mean, the level of insecurity and now people resorting to self-defense. We even had I think a governor recently saying that people should defend themselves. And that has also generated loads of reaction. Why would you say, as a governor or someone who is holding a position, who it is vested on you to protect people, their lives and property, you are now telling those people to defend themselves? What kind of picture are you painting for the people? Are you saying that we already found ourselves in a situation where the government cannot help the people or cannot protect the people? Those are the questions people are asking. What does this say of the whole situation that we have?
You know, we Nigerians must learn to appreciate situations properly before we begin to criticize. A governor who comes out to say that has seen much more than we have seen, has dealt with issues that we don't know, has probably come to the end of the rope, as it were, you know, in wanting to secure the state. Let's look at Benue. Over 1.5 million people have been displaced because of these armed herdsmen-farmer clashes. A lot of people have been displaced, people have been maimed, people have been killed. There's a law that you cannot just own a firearm. Yet, armed herdsmen continue to ravage the villages and the towns. What do you think the people would do? Self-defense. Because security agents and security forces have not done the needful. Over 1.5 million. We're not talking 100 here. So what should they do? And then when you have people purchasing their own firearms because they've been failed by the state, or rather the state has failed them, you find what the lawyers are decrying: unregulated firearms, because you don't know where they're purchasing. Proliferation of weapons. There's a proliferation. What does that tell you? One day we're just going to wake up and people are shooting here and there. You shoot me, I shoot you. That's what's looking like, right? Which is what we don't. That's anarchy. That is the road to anarchy. We don't want that. Which is why our president, the commander-in-chief of the armed forces of Nigeria, must rise to the occasion, must banish every coloration of tribalism in his decisions regarding these critical issues in the nation at the moment.
I wonder, some would say that it doesn't seem like there is a coloration of tribalism, that it's because perhaps people do not trust the government enough. That is why they begin to see those coloration.
Yeah, but when you're a leader and people don't trust you, something is wrong. Because there is a pattern to your decision making. Because people have seen that even when they cry out, even when they do, you still do what you want to do. Whether it is in the people's interest or not, so long as it's in the interest that you want to protect. So people then begin to mistrust you. So we must be very careful. Nigeria is a large country with more than 315 languages. And all kinds of dialects.
He has always said that Nigeria is an indivisible entity.
It must not
and that our
divide
unity cannot be negotiated. So
we can negotiate it if we go on like this. If you say you're going to insist on what's not in the law, people are going to say we opt out, which is what we're saying should not be. So you must be careful that in your own time, during your own administration, you do not divide the country. Because Nigeria at the moment has never been this divided.
Right. And that will be a fine place to leave our conversation this morning with regards to the newspaper headlines. Thank you so much, Broadcast Journalist Funke Treasure, for your time on the program.